Hey, Two Women Talking fans. Once again, this Subversive Disney Princesses bit with Derwin Mak as a guest had some technical difficulties. Songs might keeps cutting out. I think I get most of them in edits, but there may be a few rough cuts and a few things that don't totally make sense. So you've been warned. Without further ado, here's part 2 of Disney Princesses Subversive Genius.
But the warrior princess amongst the Disney princesses begins with Mulan, actually.
Yeah.
98.
Tired of it.
And
Yeah.
that was a cultural myth. That was their attempt to branch out. I mean, let's face it, part of it is they just run out of fairy tales.
Yeah.
They had to expand. And then, I mean, Pocahontas was a dicey one for them even before Donald Trump turned it into a pejorative against Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
Okay, but in the 90s, they may have been misguided, but they were sincere in that they thought they were doing something good with that.
I'm gonna confess something. I liked Pocahontas as
So
a
do
movie. The music was good. I know it's ahistoric. I know it ended very tragically. But if they make a Boudica movie, I don't want the ending in real history. I want the uplifting story of a lady her and her daughters rode chariots because they were outnumbered, right? I don't want the rape stuff in a Boudica movie because it's fictionalized, right? Like nobody thinks Belle is, a depiction of what era of French history was that? Like the 15th century?
Around then, it was medieval. That fairy tale's very old. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's probably 13th to 14th century. Yeah, most of them would have no teeth. Nobody but Matt Walsh thinks The Little Mermaid was a documentary about aquatic creatures.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I liked the music in Pocahontas. I liked the little raccoon guy.
Miko.
And I liked the physicality that they drew Pocahontas with. Is it perfect? No, but that's always the problem. Yesterday's progressivism is tomorrow's problematic, right? At least they tried.
Yeah, and Disney does try. Disney does evolve. The Princess franchise is evolving. Like we're in a what I call the warrior princess phase of the Disney franchise now. They're self-made women they're not necessarily born into royalty, but they do things on their own to rise in social status. So, Mulan starts as a commoner and then, rises up to become, in the Chinese legend, she gets to be the level of a general. Merida, she's an archer. She's not the traditional type of Disney princess from the 40s and 50s. Moana, another, like not a warrior in the sense of a soldier, but she is an adventurer, and Rhea is definitely an adventurer too. So the franchise does evolve. Now it'd be interesting to see if they continue with this trend of the self-made princess, a commoner who through adventure or heroic acts or bravery rises to the status of a princess. And they don't necessarily have to have the title of princess. Some of them don't act like Mulan doesn't actually have the title of princess. But
yeah, I wondered about that one. How did Mulan end up in the princess pantheon?
Branding.
Yeah, because she's not. None of that was princess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because she's basically a soldier.
Yeah.
Really, right. But in real life, princesses can be soldiers, so that's happened a lot in real life.
It's almost like they need the Disney diva brand, right? Because the whole thing about that one was the Christina Aguilera song at the end, which you could never do now. When they did the live action Aladdin, they had to get the one Arab guy in pop music who couldn't even do the key change on A Whole New World to sing the song. And that kind of shows how things have changed since the original era and the Renaissance, where Disney was being subversive in that they were sneaking Black people and Black culture into white audiences. The jazz music with the Aristocats, Song of the South that we're not allowed to talk about, Good Try, maybe the execution doesn't hold up, you know.
And now that Splash Mountain is gone, it's now they've officially erased it.
That's one of
being
those
turned into
ones.
something else.
That's one of those ones where I wish they didn't erase those from history, because well, Derwin, when you were on It's Not Therapy, we talked about this of retain and explain, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. North Americans seem to play history as a zero-sum game, right? There's an unpleasant part of your history, and the people who were descended from the persons who are, I guess, were on the wrong side of history, insist that we retain the monuments and praise their ancestors and so on, and then the people on the other side who were descended from the people who were oppressed or in some cases exterminated by this history, want to get rid of the monuments. But in the UK, I learned of a concept called retain and explain, whereas you don't tear down the statue, but you do have put up plaques and websites and education about, why is the statue here? What did this person do? And what this person did, which is objectionable now, and quite honestly was objectionable to some people during his time. That's the UK version of retain and explain, right? And the Eastern Europeans and the Chinese on Taiwan have their own version of retain and explain. They don't tear down statues or set them on fire or vandalize them or anything like that. What they do in Eastern Europe and in Taiwan is they take these statues and put them in their own park. Right? So in Poland, there's a park just for statues of former communist leaders, right? And right, so you go there and you go see the statue of Ho Chi Minh and Stalin and Lenin and whoever was in charge of East Germany, right? And the statues are not destroyed, they're not removed, but they're taken to this park or they're taken to a museum. The same thing has happened in Taiwan. The Chiang Kai-shek is no longer as revered as he used to be, especially now that it's legal to talk about a certain massacre he committed in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Right? But all these Chiang Kai-shek statues have been removed and placed into the Chiang Kai-shek Statue Park in Taiwan. So people can go there. Amusingly, the highest number of tourists who go to the Chiang Kai-shek Statue Park in Taiwan are from mainland China. They all want to get their photos taken beside a statue of their old enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say something controversial. As a kid, I absolutely loved the Brer Rabbit stories. And I mean, I was a kid in Tennessee. Like, I was really, really, really little. And obviously there is a different response to those stories down there. But even as a kid, adults sat me down and explained, because I remember the adults reacting to the tar baby in that scene. Are you guys familiar with this song? You might be too old to remember. Okay, too young to remember.
No, I've seen the
this.
movie.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because I mean, yeah, as a kid, I interpreted that of Brer Rabbit getting the drop on the bad people, which is what you were supposed to take from these are stories that exist because of the, transatlantic slave trade, period, end of story. And the Song of the South is an interesting debate about, as Derwin was saying, hence me going into this, what to do about that part of history, because I do think that these stories deserve to be told. And how do you tell them sensitively? Because the images we have associated with them, unfortunately, were created by white men documenting the oral stories that the plantation workers told. And, that's, I don't want to lose the stories because they're wonderful trickster stories. They're,
But here I'm going to say something controversial too.
Yeah.
Now. It's not up to us, the audience, whether the stories or lost or not, these films are owned by a business corporation,
Right. True.
Disney, and it's Disney's call, the Walt Disney Company's call on what to do with these films. If they want to throw Song of the South into the vault forever and eliminate that ride, it's completely up to the Walt Disney Company, right? And so, you know, and so that's why I always laugh at these, you know, the social media comments about, you know, the woke forces of the US government or the woke forces of the Democrats doing this. No, it's not the Democrats, it's not the US government, it's not even library boards that are throwing Song of the South back into the vote. It's Walt Disney Company itself. So in that case, you know, if they want to do that, they can. We have to realize that Walt Disney Company, being a business corporation, and remember, it's motivated by profit, might not think it has the same leeway to use the retain and explain concept that, say, the City of London Corporation does. City of London Corporation is the municipal government of the City of London, the 1 square mile in the middle of metropolitan London. And that's where I first learned of retain and explain, because there were statues in the City of London of people who were engaged in well, more than just banking. They had investments in the slave trade, for example, right?
Well, you know, it's so interesting to me, where it's like, my mom recently rewatched the HBO John Adams series, and I recently saw a kind of interview thing with Paul Giamatti, who played John Adams in that. And one thing he mentioned was, it's like, well, you know, nowadays Hamilton is everyone's man and everyone loves Hamilton.
Well, okay. This is the story of John Adams. So yes, they were antagonists we're talking Act 1 of Hamilton, I believe, coincides with the John Adams documentary, correct?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but the thing is, it's like, it frustrates me so much. We see the Hamilton play and how it's so abolitionist and feminist, and claims to be feminist.
Kinda. Yeah.
I've talked about that before, but like, it completely glosses over the fact that, you know, you've got the Schuyler sisters singing about, oh, women's rights, everything. Their father made his money through the slave trade.
Yep.
Then Hamilton went on to work for his father-in-law. Hamilton, through common law, Hamilton owned the slaves that came with his wife when they married.
Yeah, that Hamilton play is not a good. At first, I would not. How do I say it? It's the opposite of retain and explain, but not the opposite that most very right-wing people want.
Well, it's in the same place as I put Pocahontas, right? Don't treat it as a documentary, my God.
Yeah, don't treat it. Yeah, I had to laugh at someone, Leanna, we know this person, who said, "Don't tell me anything about American history. I don't want spoilers for Hamilton." I immediately commented, "Anything we say about American history will not be a spoiler about Hamilton." But you know, there's another example of a business company deciding what it wants to do of history. Now, and the point I was making with the City of London and retain and explain is that City of London is a municipal government, and it's not interested in making a profit off these statues and paintings that are hanging in the City of London, whereas Disney is out to make a profit. So if it wants to get rid of that Brer Rabbit ride, and throw the film back into the vault, it's within its rights to. Nothing, as much as we wish that they would retain it and add a preface to it to explain, you know, it being a product of white society at its time, like AMC, is it AMC? No, or is it Turner Classic Movies did with Gone with the Wind? It's Disney's call.
Yes.
Hamilton is a completely different bastardization of history, though.
But this talks about the subversion of Disney and why subversion is so dicey, because if you look at when Pocahontas came out, and I believe 1995.
Yes.
I
Right.
believe so, yeah.
That was at the height of the don't use us as mascots debate surrounding the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on with the Clinton administration. You know, similarly, the thing that upsets me from a historical context perspective is Song of the South came out in 1946, which was a year before Jackie Robinson even, you know, was hired by Major League Baseball. It was right smack in the middle of Jim Crow. And to put that in theaters, to hire Black people in that era, and, you know, okay, maybe not great, definitely not great, the depiction of, because I mean, it's a magical Negro trope. It's happy singing and dancing, entertaining white children stuff, but they didn't have many moves. And this is the tough bit with their depictions of women and the warrior princess thing, Derwin, that you brought up, in that you're right. It's a business. They're trying to figure out how, you said it right off the top. They're trying to bypass parents. And right now it's the parents that don't want the ball gowns and the, you know, the poof and the flounce, which is really funny because the young adult romance market is booming, I think, for a reason. You know, kids, not even girls, just kids want this stuff, but the parents are being so, no, I must program my child in the ways that I agree with. And so, I mean,
Well,
I'm trying to
well,
think of what the next pivot.
Well, I mean, how
Well-
many articles have I read of feminist writers talking about how, oh, they didn't want their daughter to be into pink, and they're horrified that now their daughter is like, give me the Cinderella dress. And these are like 4-year-olds
Yeah.
who are like, I don't want to wear anything else. Let me wear my pink ball gown, which, you know, good on you, kid. But, you know, with Wish, you know, Disney made a mistake releasing the concept art and some of the behind the scenes stuff for Wish, because I've seen a lot of people saying, give us romance back.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be the little girls want the ball gowns, and I don't think it's just little girls, honestly. Because like you said, we're seeing a boom in the young adult romance and romance in general, and I think people want it back. Like, we've seen it with, you know, people talking about the concept art from Wish and saying, Disney, bring us back romance, because, you know, they cut the romantic storyline from that movie. And it's extremely frustrating because, you know, I saw some of that concept art and I'm like, this is the Jack Frost and Rapunzel vibes I wanted back in 2012 and 2013. Right. Like, it made me draw Jack and Rapunzel fan art again. I haven't done that in almost 10 years. And so, you know, I especially felt cheated. I finally would have had the Rapunzel vibes in Disney from.
You know, it's interesting because then going back to that Ariel, Belle, Jasmine era, where the romance served to show what was cool about the female lead, in that she was different and she didn't take shitty behavior from men. And I mean, Ariel's a little complicated, but God, some of the lyrics in Poor Unfortunate Souls for the late 80s, like, men want a woman to be quiet and, you know, all that stuff. I mean, that's sung by the villain, but that resonated at the time. You know, everybody, the adults in the audience rolling their eyes at, okay, this is kind of speaking facts in 1989. And so the thing that I thought was great about those movies, Jasmine was obviously not the main character, so she's a little different, but you could have the ball gown scene. You could have that moment that's the height of femininity. It's the dance, it's the ball, it's him not being a grouch for a couple of hours. And at that time, I mean, that that was goals than not complaining for 5 minutes. When you look at what was going on in the media, I mean, that's when Married with Children was popular, when Beauty and the Beast came out. So that's the timeline. And it was that moment, but Belle didn't give up who she was to have that. She went right back to her books the next day. And I think that's better, personally, than warrior princess all the time. We don't have to be boys icky to get that. I do think, things like Turning Red, which isn't a princess brand, managed to thread that needle well, right? I mean, she's pretty boy crazy. Derwin, have you seen Turning Red?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Of
good.
course,
Yeah.
I saw Turning Red. I was actually I was at the theater for the TIFF preview screening with the
Oh,
cast.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that one shows girls liking boys and girls liking other girls. And so they can do it. So it's almost like Wish could have just been a miss, what for whatever reason. But they do show that they can do it. I do go back to that thing again, Derwin, of who are the parents of these kids now? It's the millennials, aren't they?
Oh yeah. By now they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're obviously not the. They're obviously not the parents of whichever generation watched Snow White in 1937.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And so the brand will change. I mean, the Disney brand, the Disney Princesses brand has already gone through at least 3 phases already. It's not uh without it's not impossible that we might actually see a 4th phase or a 5th phase of how this brand evolves, and which is good for the company, because that means you have a more diverse range of characters which you can market to the public.
and I do think, when you said they're trying to get past the parents, I actually teach that when I teach gender and game design at universities. I show the difference between the Star Wars branding marketed at boys, where even though there's girls in the image, it's action. The image tells the story. The body postures are dynamic. Whereas the Disney princess stuff, it really has nothing to do with the movie. Sog, have you noticed this? That when it's the princess, like all of them, they place them in a very inert, almost beauty pageant thing, which
Yeah.
almost takes the individuality of the characters out of the equation.
They do that in the theme parks too, don't
Yeah.
they? I mean, there's a certain pavilion or area where you go get your
The
photo
Royal
op
Hall.
yeah, yeah, with the
Well,
princesses.
and
Yeah.
that brings us to the Bippity Boppity Boop Boutique.
Mhm.
And I have never gone through that. I have never done it. I know people
There's an
take
age
their
limit.
kids to it.
Are you?
Yeah, but I've never been with a kid who had any interest in that. We go right for the Buzz Lightyear ride and we're good. So that is the glam squad of the Disney parks, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So what happens in this thing?
So with the Bippity Boppity Boutique, it's the kids go in and they have, it used to be a fairy godmother, but I don't remember what they're calling it now that it's more gender inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
But you go in, they get their hair done, and it's just pulled back into a really slick little bun.
Okay.
It's kind of boring, but then they get glitter put on their hair, fairy dust, and then they get to pick out a dress with the princess of their choice, or even the prince of their choice, or a pirate.
Oh, so they've incorporated the pirate shtick
Oh,
into
okay.
that.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe it's pirate as well. Yeah, so and then you get to do a little photo shoot. You go from the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique to this little spot over by the Royal Hall. The Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is inside Fantasyland. The Royal Hall is actually outside Fantasyland, but there is a special side path through the castle that takes you to Royal Hall.
Oh, that's
essentially.
cool.
Yeah.
So somebody's not going to dump an ice cream on you before your pictures.
No. But yeah, I went through Royal Hall 4 times, but I never knew that, because like adults aren't allowed to have costumes for security reasons.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that they'll give adults the fairy dust. Just
Okay.
give you a
It's floating your
sprinkling of
hair?
yeah.
Oh God.
And I'm just
Oh,
like,
okay. So that doesn't affect their facial recognition technology.
it's not even just about facial recognition, because like I had glitter on my face from my makeup, so I still had plenty of glitter.
This is a very girly thing, this whole Bippity Boppity Boop Boutique and song. As you said, it's become more gender inclusive. And that's interesting because the last time I was down there, it's been a while now, they were doing the princess and pirates thing. So they were kind of giving the boys something too. And I think that's part of why they were big into Star Wars, because there's a lot more boys cosplay that you can do with Marvel and Star Wars. But I mean, I imagine, well, I guess you can't have kids running around in a mask. They're not going to cause much problems. But Disney did seem to want to do the same thing with boys in a different way, and it didn't take. They just ended up going right back to basics and, okay, boys can come too, which personally makes me happy. And I'm curious about what you two think about this, because I do think there's something very girly about the makeover. It is feminine space. It is theirs. And I want it to stay there. I want girly things to be girly things. And if guys want to play too, that's cool. But I don't want to homogenize everything. I want there to be action spaces where girls can be pirates and stormtroopers if they want, and Jedi and all that stuff, rogue smugglers. But then the whole princess thing, if boys want to dress up as princes, or if boys want to wear the Cinderella dress, I have a friend, his son went through a phase where he wanted the Cinderella dress and he ran around weekends dressed as Cinderella. It was about a 2-year phase and he moved on, but everybody was cool with it. He did his thing. Nothing happened. That's what I want. Song, what do you think?
No, I think that it's totally normal